Training Center. This is my husband, Eric.
Hello.
We are going to be talking about body language and human body language and speaking to the dog. So not just, I know a couple weeks ago we did a Facebook Live on the sound of silence, talking about body language, a little bit there, and how we over communicate with dogs and tend to dull what we really mean because of all the other noise we give them. So this week we're going to talk specifically about your body language and how it influences your dog, and then also gender body language and the differences between males and females and how that also influences dogs. So really fun topics. This is something that I'm very passionate about. I've done several speeches on canine body language and behavior, and then also the flip side of human body language, speaking to dogs to get the desired behavior. So we'll just go ahead and jump right in.
Bam.
Bam.
Jump in.
Bam. So body language, I think it's common knowledge, but I think we often, the simplistic answer is often overlooked. Like we as humans, myself included, I tend to overcomplicate things without even realizing it. Dogs are very simple-minded creatures. Not that they're not intelligent. They're extremely intelligent, but they're extremely simple-minded. Like they don't clutter their minds with everything that we clutter our minds with. So they like to just keep it super simple and relaxed. And when we communicate with dogs, we tend to overcomplicate it by saying too many words, not realizing the influence our body language has, and then getting angry at the dog for not giving us those desired behaviors because our body language just wasn't talking to them. So what I mean by that is mixed signals. A lot of people, they'll tell their dog to sit, and their dog will ignore them by choice, and then they'll think, oh, he didn't hear me, let me get closer. And before you know it, they're completely bent over, and what that means to your dog, what that body language is yelling to your dog is, come play with me. It's what we call a play bow. So I'm sure you've seen it with dogs, right? Their head goes down to the ground, their tail goes up, and their bottom's just wagging up in the air. That's what we call a play bow. So when you don't think your dog's hearing you and you bend over to get closer, you're actually giving your body saying play, but your mouth is saying listen. So you're giving your dogs two signals. Well, they're always going to choose the funner one, just like us. We don't want to listen if we don't have to, if there's a chance to go play. And so they're going to not listen. And you're going to think, well, I'm going to get louder then, and I'm going to scream because I'm standing right by his ear and he's still not hearing me. He's hearing you just fine. He has what we call selective hearing. It's the talk to the paw attitude. He's saying, nah, it doesn't sound fun. I don't want to do that. So when you want your dog to listen, make your body mean it. Stand tall. You don't have to get angry when you yell at your dog. Just stand tall. Speak firmly. Again, not angry, but firmly, letting them know what you mean. And then, your tone has a little to do with this as well. If you're saying, Fido, can you sit for me? Will you sit? Come on, buddy, sit. You're not sounding serious, you're sounding playful. If you were to say, Fido, sit, I wasn't angry, but I clearly had a firm tone to say, I'm serious and I mean what I say. And then, the angry side would be, Fido, sit. I think you lost it. And that's what a lot of dogs think when you get angry. They think that you're no longer a sound leader, because how can you be when you're that emotional, when you're that angry and you lose control? So always be a calm leader, but be firm. Don't be jovial and playful with your tones. Keep it firm and consistent. So body language, when you want your dog to listen, stand tall. If you don't think they're hearing you because there's so much going on in the room, let's say you have company over and your dog's playing with other dogs and other kids, and they're not hearing you, it's not that they can't hear the volume, it's that there's so many other distractions clouding their ears or their audio space that they just don't want to listen to you because there's so many other better things. So having a leash on your dog to pull them out of that situation and then verbally communicate really helps to instigate that communication versus bending over and getting closer to them and having a playful body language when you really mean serious. On the flip side, when you want your dog to play, when you want your dog to engage, and when you want your dog to run back to you when they're trying to run away from you, the worst thing to do if your dog runs out of the house is to run after them chasing them. Yeah, it's the worst thing to do.
Yeah, we actually had a case like this in our neighborhood not long ago. We had somebody who just moved in, and I looked out the window and I saw somebody kind of going after a dog, and they're chasing the dog. So there's a couple guys chasing the dog back and forth, and the dog's just running around playing, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When you chase a dog, what are dogs? They're predatory animals, right? They're animals. They're not sophisticated humans like we are. They're animals. They're predators by nature. So when a predator is being chased, you have to run. You have to flee, right? The game is on. But because they are predators, we could flip that chase, and now we could become the prey and run away from that predator and engage them through our body language to chase us. It's just an instinct. If you're running at a dog, their instinct is to run away. If you're running from a dog, their instinct is to chase you, right? They have to catch you. So if your dog was to run out of the door, holler their name and run the opposite way. The other thing you can do to get them to come to you is the play bow. Remember I said when you bend over to communicate to your dog, your body's saying, come play with me instead of listen to me. You can also bend over and coax them to you that way. If the play bow isn't working, that's when I would suggest getting their attention and running as fast as you can the opposite direction, because they will chase up to you. And then you can just grab them and say, ha, gotcha. And they got you.
Yeah, definitely feels counterintuitive, and that's why people don't do that instinctively. They usually run after the dog. But as we all know, that's usually not very successful, and sometimes takes hours to catch a dog, because they will continue.
Wait for them to show up.
Yeah, they'll continue to run away if you continue to chase them.
Because it's a fun game.
It's super fun.
So when you want your dog to come to you, if you're going to practice the come command, we absolutely encourage people to do a play bow, because your body language says, come play with me. So when we talk about firm body language, when we say sit, we're standing firm. Some dogs, especially for males, men, calling them, if they're like, Fido, come, and they're standing tall, their body language, their torso is very broad, they stand tall, they talk in a very deep voice, and so when they're like, Fido, come, even though they're not yelling, it sounds a little intimidating. So Fido might be like, I don't know, it doesn't look pleasant. But if that same gentleman was to bend over and say, Fido, come, he's like, oh, did he want to play with me? Is that why he was calling me? Okay, maybe I will. So body language really helps communicate more so than what you're verbally trying to say, just with the body language. So be mindful of your body language when talking to your dog. And I bet you don't even realize it, because so many of the families that come to us, and ourselves included before we started working with dogs, did not pay attention to our body language. You almost always bend over to communicate to your dog. Because you bend over to communicate with children. We want to get on their level, right? Because they hear us better when we're right in front of their face. Well, dogs aren't children. They're different. They're a different creature. They're a different being. So when we bend over to get on their level, all they hear us scream is, play! You're free to play. Versus if we stand on our level and communicate to the dogs, they hear us just fine, even though we might be 3 or 4 feet taller than them. So don't bend over, stand tall, and just be consistent with your body language. And have somebody in your house watch you communicate with your dog, and they will start pointing out every time you bend over to communicate. It's mind-blowing. You don't even realize it. So pay attention to your body language. The other thing I've kind of hinted to was the male human race. They tend to have more of an authoritative body language and voice than females. I'm not saying females can't be authoritative and be leaders, because we can, but generally, what is a female's first response when they see a dog? What do? I'm a dog trainer, and I still do it sometimes. I bend over and say, oh my gosh, look at that cute dog. My voice just went up in elevation, right? So I sound like a giant squirrel. I just bent over, so now I'm offering the dog play signals, and the dog's thinking, she's awesome. What does a guy do when they see a dog? They
cool dog.
Keep their chin up, not
cool dog.
That's a cool dog you got there, Like, they don't bend over, they don't raise their voice into a high-pitched giant squirrel tone. They maintain an authoritative body language presence to a dog. So a lot of people have dogs that are fearful of men, and sometimes I should say, very rarely is it fear of the men. Sometimes it's respect that we often think of as fear. A dog who has a lowered tail, but not a tucked tail, but a lowered tail, they might even like kind of lower their head just a little bit. Again, I'm not talking about like completely to the ground and, belly up fear. That's fear. But that lowering of the head, the tail that's maybe down by the legs, but not tucked under the legs, that's actually a dog saying, cool, I got it that you're in charge, and I'm just letting you know I'm going to be peaceful. I'm not going to challenge you. I'm not going to confront you. And if you just ignore that dog, don't baby him when he's like that. Don't tell him to stop being like that, because we don't want a dog to think that he's above a human. But if you just let them work that out, you will see that dog's not afraid of the guy. And the next time he sees the guy, he probably won't even do that bowing presence. It's just him in that initial greeting saying, hey, I get that you're a strong leader, and I'm going to follow you. That's all I want to say. It's almost like in the military, he's saluting the commanding officer. Like he's saying, you got this. I'm just here to listen and do what you tell me to do. So that's actually a very, very high compliment from a dog. But myself included, when I first saw a dog do that, I'm like, oh, he's afraid. Stop it, you're scaring him, and it's not. It's just that respect of that dog saying, you command a authoritative body language, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because in a dog hierarchy, it's a hierarchy, right? It's not like everybody's equal.
Right.
So if everybody's body language is strong, then that's where there's conflict. But like you're saying, that dog is just saying, I'm cool with this.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool, so that there is no conflict. So yeah, it's just a natural thing that dogs do to communicate to other pack members or other dogs or humans around. Like, it's cool. I'm good with that, so that there's no conflict.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the other side of that is often what we see is people will rescue a dog who has that respect response to males, or maybe is a little bit more fearful because they haven't been around a lot of males, and they'll say, oh, he was abused by a male. He was abused by men. Men are just mean. Chances are, there's a rare possibility, but some dogs I've met dogs that from birth went through were adopted into a nice family. They got him straight from the breeder. There was no chance that this dog could ever be abused by men. And it still had that same response to men. So it's not always that he was abused by men. It's just sometimes men do stand a little bit more authoritative. And if a dog's not around that, he might be a little uncomfortable with that at first, because he's not sure what to expect. But again, if you just let everybody coexist without making a big fuss about it, or babying the dog or yelling at the man, the dog will get over it and realize, okay, so even though he may look a little authoritative, like he's above me, he's not going to be abusive to me, he's not going to do anything to hurt me. I get it. And here's a story about me and my past. I met my dad one time. I never had a dad in my life. I never had a male role model in my life. So grown men scared the crap out of me, especially when they would, talk firmly or discipline their kids. That tone, because dads already have a deep voice, so they would just get like, not yelling, not abusive. I had several friends' dads who were fantastic dads, but to me, I never had. It was me, my mom, and my sister who was 6 years older than me. So never had a man in my life, and when they would get that firm tone to correct or scold, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I will do everything you say, because that is just, I'm scared to death. Like, never been abused by a guy, never had anything fearful from that guy, but just because I wasn't used to it, those first few times I would spend the night at someone's house, and like, let's say we were up too late playing, and dad would have to come down and tell us, gotta go to bed. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, we gotta go to bed right now. And they're like, oh, we're fine. I'm like, no, we have to go to bed. We don't want dad to come back down. Like, it was just new to me. And that's what a lot of dogs have, but we make it so much worse by babying the dog and saying, oh, it's okay, you don't have to be afraid. When we're saying, it's okay, you can be afraid. And then yelling at the dad, like, you need to stop that, you're being too mean. And then the dog says, oh, so you want me to be afraid, and he's the bad guy. Now you just created a monster. You just babied this dog who lifted him up in his fear-minded state and said, this is the bad guy. So now the dog's going to not like this guy and possibly be more nippy or reactive to him because he's the bad guy. You just yelled at him, so clearly he's a bad guy. So we're giving him all these mixed signals. So don't do that when you have a dog that's around a man. And there's a difference between men that are mean to dogs, and they do exist, and we definitely don't want our dogs to have to be around those people. That's when we just leave. We've had situations where we've gone downtown and taken, our own dog or even a client's dog for distraction training, and a man comes up who's a little rough with his petting and like just kind of manhandling the dogs, and I'm like, yeah, we don't like that, and we just excuse ourselves and walk away. We don't have to be rude to that man. He probably doesn't intend to be that rude with his handling, but it's kind of like if I walked up to somebody's cute baby and picked it up out of the stroller and was like, oh my gosh, and putting it on my shoulder and patting its back, like, this ain't your baby, put it back. So sometimes that can be a little intimidating for dogs, and it can be a little intimidating for me because I don't know you. But you don't have to make a big deal about it. Just avoid those situations. And then there are some women who make a good dog impossible because they turn into a giant squirrel and they don't stop. So you're struggling with your dog to listen, and you're trying to get them to hold their sit command or be respectful and remember their manners, and they're like, oh my gosh, come here and love me. And the dog's like, oh my gosh, I can't contain myself. These people are freaking nuts. That's not fair either. So there's pros and cons to both sides of the spectrum, but that happy place is right in that middle where you can maintain a calm body language, keep your body language firm when you need it to be, bend over and play ball when you want the dogs to come or play with you, and just maintain that. God made men and female different for a reason. So there's nothing wrong with a male being more authoritative and having a deeper voice, and there's nothing wrong with a female being softer, but know that that affects your relationship with your dog, especially how you react around your dog in those situations. So I think I kind of went off on a long tangent there, but I think I got my point across.
Yeah, and I'd say one other thing, like, don't discredit even the smallest things that you do with your body language, because like we've talked about before, dogs have the IQ of a small child, right? Yeah. So like our dogs can even pick up on like your confidence level. Like if you're trying to do something new with your dog, if you're trying to get your dog to walk on a loose leash, or get your dog to sit, and you say sit and they don't do it, and you go, ugh, and you just kind of look like your dog picks up on that. Your dog knows that means
says winning.
Yeah, your dog knows that means you're either clueless, not confident, unsure, losing this battle of I'm gonna get my dog to listen, and they're like, I've never had to listen before. So like think about that. So like stand tall, like act like you know what you're doing. Like it's kind of a
fake it till you make it.
Yeah, I would say that's a very good time to fake it till you make it, because your dog will know that, wow, like yesterday I was walking all over Susie, but today she means business. I think I'm just gonna get in a line. So like your dogs will pick up even on the most subtle things. So keep that in mind. Like if your 2 or 3 year old child could pick up on your subtle, like, your dog will too. Maybe even more so. Yeah. So keep that in mind. Just a little nugget there.
That's a very good point. When I first started training dogs over 10 years ago, I remember going to the park with my 2 dogs and thinking I'm all that because I am a dog trainer and I knew what I was doing, and y'all better watch out because I got this. And I tripped and fell because I have that kind of class. And I was so embarrassed because in my mind I thought I was all that, and then I just tripped and fell in this park in front of everybody, and I got up and I was so flustered and embarrassed, and my dogs started jumping on me, and they haven't jumped on me since I started training. Like, they have been very respectful and mindful, but they could tell I was flustered, and they're like, hey mom, you don't know what you're doing, I can do whatever I want. And they were pulling on the leash. It was awful. I went home and I pouted and I was so upset at myself. So the next time I still have the same awful coordination. When I tripped and stumbled, I looked at my dogs and I'm like, yeah, I meant to do that. What are you going to do about it? And they're like, nothing. Fake it till you make it. If you don't know what you're doing and you screw up, because you will, you're human, that's what we do. We have accidents, we make mistakes. Learn from it. Turn it on your dog and be like, yeah, I meant to do that. What are you going to do about it? That was a test. And when you make it a test and you have that attitude, your dog's like, oh crap, I ain't doing nothing because mom was tricking me. Even if you weren't tricking them, like that's just how they think. So just like children, dogs will take advantage of any weakness you give them. So flip it on them. It was a test. I meant to do that. What are you going to do about it?
Just be confident.
And it works. I mean, it works like a charm because they pick up on your body language signals, your stress hormone changes, everything that happens in there. Your dog's smelling it, he's seeing it, and he'll just take advantage of it. So don't let that be a thing. What else we got? I think that sums it up. So be mindful of your body language. When you want your dog to listen, stand tall, speak firmly. Don't speak joyful. I shouldn't say joyful. You can be happy, but don't speak like
Jubilantly.
jubilantly.
Jubilant.
Jubilantly.
If that's not
Yeah.
a word, you guys know what I'm talking
Don't
about.
talk like a clown, is what we're trying to say. Speak like a grown adult who means business.
Yeah. Take your clown shoes off.
I always think of Glazer and Ebbs. We mean business. It's like a lawyer back in Fort Wayne. But anyways, so yeah, stand tall, speak firmly, and at a steady level of your voice. Like, don't be like, Fido, sit! That was kind of a firm tone, but my voice was so high-pitched it didn't sound serious. So, calm tone, firmly. If you want your dog to come to you or you want your dog to break their command when it's time for them to get up from their sit command or release from their place, bend over and have a playful tone then, like, break! What a good boy! That's absolutely okay. And then, the differences between males and females. So if your dog has this standoff tendency with men, it's probably just because he's not used to having different men in his life to understand their body language and how it's different. And women just tend to make it so easy to love us because we get down and play and give them a play by and say, you don't have to listen to me, just play with me. So there is a difference there. So remember your body language next time you're speaking to your dog because it does speak way louder than anything verbally you're trying to say.
That's it.
So that's all we got. That's all she wrote and he.
That's how we wrote. That's how we wrote.
I'm Krystal. This is my husband Eric. We're with the Dog Psychology and Training Center.